But today is World Parkinson's Day, a disease first identified by British doctor James Parkinson back in 1817. And more than 200 years later, there is still no cure, but researchers are making progress in a number of areas. So looking at the causes of the disease, improving patients' quality of life, and hoping, of course, for an eventual cure. So to find out what it's like to live with Parkinson's on a day-to-day basis, we're joined this afternoon in the studio by Rob Farrer, who was diagnosed in 2008, Rob's wife Fenella, and Fiona Baxter, who found out she had Parkinson's 16 years ago, and all are members of the Parkinson's Disease Society Isle of Man. Thank you so much to all of you for being with us today. Fiona, I'm going to start with you. Diagnosed 16 years ago, what was it that made you first go to the doctor, I presume, suspecting you had an issue?
Well, I was trying to play the organ with my son, and I couldn't do it. My fingers wouldn't move. And I used to go line dancing, and I found that my left arm wasn't swinging. So I started to have panic, cancer, because I just lost my mum to a brain tumour, and she'd lost all the use of her left side. So I went to the doctor thinking, hoping it wasn't going to be the big C, which it wasn't. So I was quite relieved in a sense, actually, 16 years ago, to get told that he hadn't got cancer. But it was the movement, not being able to do buttons up and things like that. That's what made me realise I had something wrong.
And did the GP immediately realise that it was Parkinson's, or did it take a few more consultations?
No, I got within 2 months of knowing of going to see the first doctor, I was told I'd got Parkinson's, yes. First thing I said was, I'm not old enough to have Parkinson's, but that's not true. You get Parkinson's at any age. So, yes, not just an old person's disease, as we always thought it was.
And at that point, Fiona, did you know how far it had progressed? I mean, how long you'd actually been living with it?
No, I don't know. And I only really know from my 50th birthday party. From then onwards, those 3 months, everything seemed to stop working. And that was when I went and got to see the doctor.
And now, is it managed by, you're on medication, presumably?
Yes. It's very good. I have Stalevo, which gets me moving. And my speech is the thing that's get me down, and my handwriting has disappeared completely, which seems to be the common thing with all of us. Our handwriting is dreadful. Well, doctor's writing.
I was going to say, not much better than mine, I suspect. Yeah.
Well, we are also joined by Rob and Fenella Farrer. And Rob, you found out you had Parkinson's 10 years ago, but actually it'd been a couple of years before that you suspected.
It was more like 12 years ago when I came to the conclusion I had Parkinson's, because my mother had Parkinson's, and all those symptoms I was experiencing at that time were the same. And like men, they won't go and get it sorted. It took me 2 years. But the specialist said that the 2 years wouldn't have mattered, but looking back on it, I could have taken medication earlier, which proves that your mobility lasts longer when it's taken earlier.
Fenella, I wonder from your point of view whether you were aware 2 years previously.
I was very aware that Rob had Parkinson's, and I kept trying to get him to go to the doctor. At first I thought, well, maybe he doesn't realise he's got Parkinson's. In the end, I lost it completely, and I was screaming and shouting at him, and I walked out of the door because I was going somewhere. And when I came back, he said, I've made an appointment.
John, is this quite a common thing, especially when we're talking about men dealing with issues
absolutely.
like this?
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, it's partly blokes being blokes, isn't it? And brushing things under the carpet. But actually, to be serious, I think people are often quite nervous about what the answer might be. Yeah. And I'm particularly interested in what you were saying, Fiona, about worrying about, cancer or brain tumours or strokes, or, people, if they don't know, they're often quite scared. Nowadays, we've talked about this many times on the programme before, people will look up on Dr. Google and will often get the worst possible case scenario, and so they tend to scare themselves. So yeah, I mean, look, it's a difficult disease to diagnose. All of those sitting on my right will agree with that. Many GPs often feel quite flummoxed by the very vague symptoms that early Parkinson's often presents with. But don't let that put you off. If a GP doesn't know what's going on, that doesn't matter. The point with GPs is that we are jacks of all trades and masters of very few, but what we do know is generally a man or a woman who can, and so we will generally refer you if we're not sure about what the problem is very quickly. And as you've said, once you get referred, things happen very fast. So don't be afraid to come. At the end of the day, the earlier you come, as you were saying, Rob, the better, really, because we can pick things up early, and generally then we can prevent things getting worse in most cases.
And Rob and Fiona, I'm really interested to know how other people have reacted to you, because often Parkinson's people have a very definite idea of how the symptoms present, and I wonder how much understanding, Rob, first of all, that you faced.
I found it difficult. I thought it was going to be a worse disease than I had. When I went to see the specialist who diagnosed Parkinson's, I said, he said, "What do you think you got?" I said, "Parkinson's." And he said, "You know that?" I said, "My mother had it," and I said, "I've got similar symptoms." And I said, I was more worried that I might have had motor neurone. And he was laughing at that. I don't mean to be frivolous about that. I thought it was much more serious than what it was. And he turned out to be an Everton supporter like me, so we spoke about Parkinson's for 10 minutes and 50 minutes about football.
And Fiona, how understanding have you found people about what you have to deal with?
Very, very good. I told people straight away, because I thought going to shop right in the morning to do my shopping, I couldn't open a carrier bag, and they had a bottle of wine with me. They think I was an alcoholic, so I told people straight away, because I had a terrible limp and I had a tremor when I first started. I don't have tremor so much now, but I had quite a bad tremor when I started. So I just told everybody what was wrong with me. They also kept saying, you're too young, but you're not too young. You can get at a very young age now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We've got lots of new people who are younger than us that are going down with Parkinson's, and we don't know why, and that's the problem.
Well, that's the thing, though, there's an article on the BBC noting the fact it's Parkinson's Awareness Day today, and that is about a young boy. I think he found out when he was very young, under the age of 10, I think, that he had it, so it can happen that way. But one of the things that's come out today, in recognition of the Awareness Day as well, is this point about symptoms, because although I think the statistics were something like 80% of us know that it's the tremor, and would recognise things like that, or maybe the slowness, but we're not aware of, I think there's something like 40 plus symptoms, and it's everything from sort of hallucinations to all sorts of things, isn't there?
Can I just look on that one? Men tend to have a loss of smell. Loss of the smell seems to come very early. It's a very early symptom, and if we picked up on that and researched that and actually gave people medication earlier, I think we would hold it back.
Yeah, I mean that's it's a very good point, and I think we should always be taking loss of smell seriously. Having said that, there are lots of other things that cause you to lose your smell. So just because you've lost your smell, please don't worry that you're going to get Parkinson's. It's not necessarily the case, but it's certainly, in combination with some other things, it's certainly something we need to take note of.
If they picked 100 men up who have got loss of smell without any other Parkinson's symptoms, I'm sure there's quite a few that would turn into Parkinson's.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
And then we'll be able to study it early.
Yep, okay.
How it's affecting the brain, hopefully.
Absolutely.
And treat it earlier.
I'd just
Fenella?
like to say about the tremor, actually 30% of people who have Parkinson's have no tremor.
Interesting.
That is interesting, considering that is
That's
typically
what everybody
people think,
sees,
yeah.
yes.
And
But there's so many different things that Parkinson's throws up, and it's quite difficult really to diagnose it. I can understand how it gets missed.
And Fenella, from your point of view as a family member, I just wonder what it's been like these past 10 years or so.
Well, it wasn't so bad to start with, and we sort of, the medication we're holding it, but it's gradually it's got worse. And we used to go on holiday. Well, we've stopped now because it's just not. It doesn't turn out to be a holiday. It turns out to be awful. So we don't bother.
I still go on holiday. Yeah, I think it's harder for men. I think men seem to be affected by Parkinson's more than women, and they seem to get more, go downhill a lot quicker than women. I'm going on holiday again this summer on a cruise, so that's one thing I can do really well.
The other thing I think we need to be aware of, and perhaps the general public needs to be more aware of, is how much Parkinson's can have an effect on your mental health. As Fenella was talking about just now, it's hard work, not only for the patient, for goodness sake, obviously you've got lots to deal with, but also for families in caring for them and supporting them. I've had a patient actually who I've eventually diagnosed with Parkinsonism who presented simply with depression. That's all he came in with, and initially for the first few months we treated him for depression. Didn't really get better, seemed to be quite slow. Eventually realised there was something else going on and referred him. So depression is actually one of the signs that you can get with Parkinson's. It can affect your mental health as well. But yeah, very important to look at that as well as looking at the physical symptoms. Even as GPs, we often forget that because it's a very visible illness. You can see often when there is a tremor or unusual movements. There's thing called bradykinesia. People move quite slowly and have some unusual movements, and so you tend to concentrate on that, and it's often quite difficult to see what's going on behind that, particularly when you have speech problems or difficulties with physical symptoms which stop you explaining yourself quite as well. What we have to remember, of course, is that Parkinson's sufferers have got everything going upstairs is all absolutely fine, and that's often quite frustrating. Mentally, they're completely well. The general public sometimes feel that there is a mental problem alongside that, and very often there isn't any at all, but it's quite frustrating, isn't it? Because you often can't express yourself in the way you'd like to.
Yeah, the top floors are right, but the rest are caving in below you.
Your top floor's absolutely all right, Rob. Yeah, I can certainly confirm that.
I would like to say that most people who've got Parkinson's in our Parkinson Society are very intelligent, and I think that once you've got Parkinson's, because of your tremor, if you've got it, or because of the way you walk, people tend to think that you've got no brain at all.
You think you're drunk.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's only half a lager.
I find it quite annoying.
We talked a little bit about treatment, and Rob, I noticed you've got something with you here. Is that a new treatment, and how effective are the treatments that you take?
When I first had an injection of this material here, it's in the pump now, but I had injections to start off with. The very first injection, I felt like I've gone back 5 years, but I'm afraid that's gone by the board now. As with all medications, you've lost 70% of your dopamine when you're first diagnosed, so you've got very little left. And these medications are only just a short backup, and they disappear out of your system pretty fast. But that first half an hour after I took this new medicine was like a miracle. It was nice to go back, and I knew it was really short-lived, but it was nice.
Well, we have been talking about the fact it is World Parkinson's Day. You are all members of the Parkinson's Disease Society Isle of Man, and I wonder, as an organisation, how supportive and helpful you've both found that.
I found it amazing. It's going to a room full of friends because everybody's in the same boat, in the same shoes, and the carers are in the same shoes as the other carers. People with Parkinson's, they might vary in their symptoms, but you can recognise them. But they're all my friends. Mm-hmm. Every time I go to a drop-in, I go to a room full of friends, and I really enjoy that.
Fiona?
We still have carers come who husbands or wives have passed away as well. It's nice to see them. It's great, yes. We have quizzes and do all sorts of things. We had the police dog unit up last month, and it's great. Yeah, it's like Rob says, a room full of friends, yes. Makes you feel good.
Fenella, it's not just for people with Parkinson's themselves.
I find it so supportive, and I find I can talk to other people. And Fiona does a terrific amount of work for our Parkinson's Society. She does quizzes for us every week and every month, and we get a quiz to do, and we play Irish bingo, is it?
Irish
with
bingo,
the flags.
Yeah. Irish bingo.
So we have quite a lot going on, and there's quite often have people in to speak and that.
Well, these three people here, myself included, created a local treasure hunt, which was quite easy to do. 800 forms went out, so about 2,000 people took part in it. Yeah. We enjoyed it, they enjoyed it. Got to see parts of the island they'd never seen me.
Yeah, I did that actually, it was very good.
You did it?
Yeah, it was very good fun.
Love it. Yes, we did. We raised over £3,000. Parkinson's
no, we got more than that eventually. We had nearly 4.
Yes.
Wow, nearly £4,000 for a treasure hunt. It's brilliant. And someone who we obviously talk to quite a lot at the station as well is Michael Cowan, Pulleyman, known for his poetry. But he's not the only one who's known for his poetry, because Fiona, you've been writing poetry. Is it since you were diagnosed that you sort of decided to start writing it?
They mainly write about the family or rock fan and choir. because they're my friends. They're brilliant rock band and choir. They
They're
look
a
after
lovely
me.
bunch.
Yes.
And she's brought one in with her as
Oh,
well.
really?
Anna.
Would you like to
Yes.
read something, Fiona?
Okay. Yes. Parkinson's doesn't care who you are. Parkinson's doesn't give a damn whether you're a woman or a man, whether you're old or young. It's no fun when the doctor says you have it. How to cope, I hear you say. Well, as an expert, it's okay. Don't give in, no, and let it win. Just take the first punch on the chin. Don't keep it a secret. Let everyone know, especially before the symptoms do show. It's easier for people to understand when you have a tremor in your hand. Life gets hard and is very tiring. Life goes on, but life still goes on. I'm 16 years down the line, and yes, I have still having fun. Parkinson's is not a killer. Just gets in the blooming way. Makes you tired, grumpy and tearful. But some people like that anyway. But the Isle of Man has great society. We get together every month. They drop in at Palace Hotel on the Douglas front. We have some lunch and plenty of chat, some games and maybe a speaker. I also met some wonderful people, so thank you, Parkinson's, for that.
That is brilliant.
Amazing.
Do you know what I love about that is especially the mention of the humour and the humour in the poem. And another thing that came out today with it being World Parkinson's Day was I've forgotten his name now, but the guy who writes Vicar of Dibley, or did write it, and he's someone who has Parkinson's himself, and he also says one of the key things is to keep that sense of humour, and it clearly comes through
Half
there
pint
as
full, not
well.
half pint empty. You have to
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned getting together, and I think that there's an event happening on Sunday, isn't there?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Church service on Sunday, Brandon Church at 3 o'clock. Our church service, we have to remember everybody who belongs to Parkinson's. We have a lovely faith tea afterwards, it's lovely. Fenella makes all our beautiful cakes. And it's lovely, yes, very nice.
So that is this Sunday at 3 p.m. at Braddon Church. You can listen to the Regal Singers. There are also collections throughout the island, and I know the Parkinson's Disease Society Isle of Man wants to thank all the ShopRite stores and to all the volunteers who have given up their time for that as well.